36, which is chapter 4 of your manual, which you'll have soon enough. Once you have that, oops, somebody's coming in. Let's get them in. You're logging in. Your login automatically gets you to case manager, so you don't have to worry about going in and reselecting a new case manager profile. And then you're going to go to the My Work chapter, and in there you're going to see clinically eligible. When you select on clinically eligible, which we've gone over, it's going to open up with any of the cases that have now been reassigned over to you. It's going to have the consumer, the case number in WellSky, the provider, which should be now Accesspoint RI. It's all going to be in caps. All of our CFCM case management agencies, even though you have other designations for other work you do, anything CFCM, especially case management, is going to be a capitalized provider name. That way the billing goes right. This is all different billing codes that are associated with all the work that you do. So the capitalized provider is going to be the CFCM designation. Once that happens, you're also going to see, as I said, the disposition of clinically eligible and the date of that disposition, the enrollment date. You as a worker are going to show up, and then the Medicaid ID. If something in here doesn't show up properly, but maybe the worker does, but not the provider, you have the opportunity as you go into the record to make that change and fix it. And I'm going to show you where that is in 2 seconds. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. And as I said, this is like a 1 to 100. Do this, do this, do this, do this in order. And as you do it, it will help you and make everything work right. Was there a question?
Oh. Yeah, Kevin. So we missed a lot of what you just said because the meeting went blank. It was on hold.
Oh, that's very strange. Okay. Let's go back real quick then. And I'm recording, but as I say, this is chapter 4 on page 36. Again, you sign in as the case manager. You're going to go through the My Work chapter of your dashboard in WellSky after you log in and look for any cases that are clinically eligible. Those are the new cases that are coming in. In this area here, you're going to be able to see that you now have a case referred to you, and that case is going to have the consumer's name, the WellSky case number, the provider, which now should be Accesspoint RI. The disposition is clinically eligible, as we just had, the date of that disposition and the enrollment date, you as the worker, and the Medicaid ID. And if anything's missing from here, I'm going to show you how to fix it. I mean, you got it because you were assigned as the worker, but let's say, unfortunately, somehow the provider didn't come through, you can go in there and make that change in the next screen. So that shouldn't be a problem, but you want to make sure all of this is right because you're the one now taking over the case. Okay. In that area, after you select this, because this is what you want to work on, it's going to take you to the CMA service provider tab. And that's where most of the reassignment and assignment work is going to be done. There'll be work that's already done under demographics, open close, state agencies, and the assessments and forms, which are the ones that DHS would be doing. You guys have done one as an example of an inter-I and other things. You won't have to worry about that with these new referrals that are coming through. It's going to be just you handling now the person-centered plan part. So as you open this right here under the CMA tab, you're going to see the following here. You're going to come into that. Oh, we got a hand raised. Are we having trouble again?
Yeah, so if I go to the My Work, Mercedes as well. So if we go to My Work, we don't have a tab that says CMA service provider.
Right, and you won't have one until you get an actual case assigned to you. So if I assign a case to you, one of the ones you've worked on or anything, then you'll have one. Until that time, you will not see it.
I've
got a lot of background. There we go. Just have a lot of background for some reason. I don't know why, but so you will see one. I can make one for you. We can do that, and that way you'll see it. But only when you're going to have a new case and a new referral will that come through. Roseanne, why don't you unmute and ask your question? I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear it.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I see what you're saying, but Rosani has that tab on hers, and aren't we all the same? And so does Gisella. So does Gisella. The CMA service provider tab, but Mercedes and I do not.
Do they have a case right now that's considered clinically eligible?
It's so when they click on it, it's just it's the case that they made up, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, they do. So basically their grouping was selected as clinically eligible. If Mercedes wants one, I can go through it real quick and make her one and have it show up. Mercedes, what is the client that you created in the sandbox? What's the name of the client, the last name? I can't hear you.
Mercedes Rodriguez.
Oh, okay. It is okay. Got it. And there is, oh, got the wrong one. Got to put it the other Rodriguez. No problem. Is it, can she give me the case number that it is? The case number for Mercedes?
Do you have the case number from looking for it? No. No, I don't have it.
It's a 5-digit number. No?
No, she's not, there's nothing behind that. I don't have it. Yours?
Don't have it.
No.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can find it another way then.
Oh, I found the case number.
You did. Okay. Great. What do you got?
10598.
Okay. 105. What is it again? I'm sorry. Some of the background noise is killing the connection. What was the 105 what?
Oh, I do have it. I do. I have it. Sorry.
You have the, okay, you have clinically eligible? Great. Okay. So as I say, when you have one, as you can see here, you're going to have a CMA service provider tab that's going to show up only when you have it. And that's why you know you can check. And you'll be, that'll be the primary box that you guys check on a regular basis. Okay. I'm going to mute that. That Polycom is killing the sound here. Sorry. Okay. So with that, you're going to be there, and you're going to see it. You're only going to see it when it's assigned to you. Okay. Otherwise, you won't see it. But when we get back into the case, and again, I want to be able to get to the right place here, which I'm sharing here, right? I just want to make sure I'm sharing here. Yeah. Okay. You're going to see right here that you can change, and I know it's a little hard to see, you can change the service provider right here on the left. You can also change the disposition, and you're going to change it from clinically eligible over to open, because now you're going to take control of the case. Okay. Roseanne, your hand is still raised. Do you have a question?
I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah, I do. I'd like to be able to follow along, but I'm not able to. I don't have access to that. So could you make it so that I can?
Yeah. Give me a name of your client and I can give you access.
Roseanne Simeone. I have the number as well.
Oh, got it. Yep. I think I remember it.
Okay. 10595.
Yep. I'm going to do it right now for you.
So
no problem. So, yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'll set it up so you'll be able to see it in 2 seconds. And as I said, I was just, we'll get everybody under the umbrella real quick so you can see that. And then it's easier to follow along. Go. Now you may have to refresh this a couple times the way it shows up. Is anybody else in the group not have clinically eligible? Because I know people are at different places in the work that they were doing.
I think we're all set.
Okay. So if you refresh it, you should be able to see it under your My Work.
I see it. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Yep. So that means the case now is assigned to you. And Roseanne, for the time being, just so you know, when DHS gives you as the supervisor all of the cases, they're going to put your name on it and they're going to put clinically eligible. So that way it'll show up in your CMA service provider first, then you'll go in and you'll make the change. I'll show you how to do it real quick so that you can see it. So if you want to do that, at your point, you guys can see my screen, right? I'm at Roseanne's client right now. If she opens it up or if I open it up as the supervisor, all I need to do here is I'm going to change this from clinically eligible. Well, actually, I'm going to keep it clinically eligible. I'm going to put in a provider worker. Okay. I'm going to go in here and add a provider worker. And then I'm going to pick a member of the team. So let's say I pick Lisbeth. Actually, that's not going to work. Let's see if I pick up Anelli, and I'm going to assign her this case. That's not working either. Let's find out why. I think it's probably because I haven't activated you guys in all different ways yet. Yeah, that's not going to be an add-on. I want to see how I want to do this. To pick this up, we've had a couple of little glitches here. Let me go back in here. But you're going to go into provider workers. I think it's because the account isn't completely active yet. We're still in the sandbox. That's been part of the problem. But let's say anybody on your team, if you want to assign it to me, okay, you put my name in, I'll show up just like any of your team will show up once we're ready. You'll select that, add me in. So I will now become a referral worker. Okay. Now I'll show up under your name or above your name and see how you're the primary worker, but I'm not. When you want to change that, you're going to have access to click this box here. And then you'll go up here under tools and you'll designate as the primary. When you do that, that'll flip this around. So I'll be the primary and you'll be the secondary. And that's how you're going to want to do it. All right, somebody's got either a hand up or somebody's coming in. Paula's coming in. Okay. Roseanne, does that sound like something that, pretty straightforward overall, other than right now you can't select any of your team temporarily until we get that set up? Does that sound something that looks pretty straightforward?
Yeah, I mean, we just have to work with it. I mean,
Yeah,
as long as it's in the manual and, we can follow along. I mean, it's a lot right now to kind of digest and navigate, but I'm sure we'll get
absolutely.
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. The biggest thing is just staying in the service providers here, which you'll normally be in anyway, and go over here to the CMA provider workers and add your worker. Okay, and then that's all you have to do.
Well,
So
that's
okay,
not something I have to do right now, correct? To follow
that's not
along.
yeah, that's not something you're going to do right now. That's going to be when you first start getting referrals from DHS. You'll start moving them over to your team, and you'll start doing that. So that's all you need to do. Now you may have done this. You may have done that already. So I'm gonna take my name off. I'm gonna get. You're still primary. I'm secondary. We're good. Okay. All right. With that being said, I'm gonna move back to the document. And after that's made and Roseanne has done the referral and you have it, you make sure that this says your agency, which would be Accesspoint. If it doesn't, you're going to change that and you're going to open up the disposition. And the reason why you open it up is because now you're the one doing all the work to it. And that opens up any of the ticklers and any of the reminders and also some of the documentation that needs to be put in, and it assigns it to you and it starts the timer for your 3 days. And when we talk about the 3 days, everybody remembers you've got to attempt the contact in 3 days, and you also need to write that letter and mail that off within the 3 days. That's the most important two things. Okay. When you do it, as we just said, there are ticklers. Okay. Each of those ticklers fired off once you changed over the assignment from clinically eligible to open, because now you're assigned all of the new work. Once I go in there and I select the ticklers, and I can select it from any screen that I want, I will get underneath there the two ticklers here that are the two things that I need to do first. Now, does anybody remember what happens if the first contact attempt doesn't work? What do you need to do to get back into the contact form to write in the next contact attempt? Does anybody remember how that gets done? Anybody at all? Don't be shy. You're going to do this a lot. All right, we'll re-remind everybody. Let's say I've made my first contact attempt. Okay, I'm back in Roseanne's record. and I need to make and it was unsuccessful. That next contact attempt, I go under assessments and forms, and under there, if I open up a new assessment and forms, I can select contact form from that, and I now have the next contact form that I need to fill out. One of the things I wanted to tell you, and I have been taught, as I say, I work with 7 different agencies, all being trained at different levels, is there are some pretty savvy social caseworkers. I'm sure you guys are absolutely as well, and you're going to find ways to kind of, you know, regulate the system a little bit, maybe make it a little easier for you, because there are some things that have to be done and some straightforward things. There are also some things that, can be kind of monotonous for you. Like, why do I have to keep filling out a contact form and an appointment for every single time I do contacting of the people? If I'm going out there, if I'm setting up, an appointment for them, I got to do a contact form. There is a means that somebody has, thought of that we agree with in order to kind of cut down on the amount of contact forms you need to create. So here's how it works. If you have to physically either go out to the person's house or you have to get them on the phone and it's not a regularly scheduled appointment, then you have to create a contact form. Okay. If you, at the meeting that you had, that first meeting, set up the next meeting, you will not have to do a contact form because you're not recontacting the person for the next meeting. You're only needing to fill out an appointment form. Okay. So the most you'll have to do, if you keep up with and everybody's on the same page as far as when the contacts need to be done, is you could get away with, unless you need to make extra phone calls to the person, you could get away with fewer contact forms. Okay. And sometimes it will be okay to do it that way, because basically you don't need to make extra phone calls to that person if you've got a good setup and you've kind of planned it out. So that will save you some time and some paperwork. You will have to do, though, appointments for every single time that you have something that you are set up with the client, whether it's a phone call or a physical meeting. So you can't get out of the appointments, but you can reduce the amount of contact forms that you need to fill out. And that's, we did go over that. I did talk to the agencies about that, and I've talked to the CFCM leads about that, and that's going to be okay. Does everybody kind of understand where I'm getting to on that? Because people are like, why do I have to do a contact form every time I do an appointment? It seems like I'm getting double the work. It's not that you are, in a way, but you are making a new contact. Okay, that's fine. And Ailey, just put in the chat what the name of your client is, and I'll go in and make that change so you can see it. Okay, with that being said, you know where now the contact forms are for any of the ones you have to do. You're probably going to do contact forms for at least the first time you're meeting with a person. And then the second time you probably don't need to do it, because you're going to make that contact at your meeting, your first meeting, and say, can I come out in a couple of days? I need you to sign this. And they're going to say, that's fine. Then when you go out another time, you can make, more personal contacts and not have to call the person to set up that monthly contact. Okay. As long as that's done and they don't miss it, you don't have to fill out another one, as long as you're making them when you're physically talking to them on the phone, and you didn't have to make that contact form fill out because you've done it when you met with them. Otherwise you do. So let's say they don't pick up the phone. Then it's a contact form saying that it was unsuccessful when you tried to reach them, let's say for the monthly outreach, and then you have to do more contact forms until you reach them successfully on the phone. Because unfortunately, anytime you're reaching out over the phone beyond the appointment that you set up when you met with them, you are going to have to fill out contact forms. There's just no way to go around that. So I hope that helps to answer a little bit. We've been trying to reduce some of the paperwork load. This is a federal requirement, not a state requirement. So that's the reason why the contact forms and the appointments have to get filled out and put in. But there are little ways to work around it. Paola, what can we do for you?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
So Do you have to do a note as well with the contact form?
No, no, you don't have to do a note unless you need to put down details of the meeting or the contact that you need to report out. Let's say that they had a med change or they need a provider change or something like that. That would be over and above what the contact note form was really about. So then you'd have to do a note. Otherwise, no. If you're just setting up that basically you're gonna, talk to them or meet with them or do something with them on a certain day or time, you can just fill that out in the appointment. So you do have
Also,
yep.
so that includes the monthly call.
Yeah, the monthly call. I mean, as I said, at that second meeting, when you get them to sign the person-centered plan, you could do yourself a favor and say, let's agree upon what day of the week and what day of the month each month that I'm going to be calling you. If I've suggested to folks, grab a calendar, have something in your hand for them that you can write down and say, I'm going to give you a call that the third Thursday of the month at 11 o'clock. Does that work? Oh yeah, that's great. I'm home and we're getting ready for lunch and my PCA is here and everything else. And you get everybody there, as she's signing the document. Put it up on her calendar, write it in, have the family put a couple of notes on it. Everybody knows you're going to be calling. You do not need a contact form for that because you've done all the work outside of making a phone call. Okay, you do have to set up an appointment in the appointments section of WellSky in order to make sure that you have, in your schedule an appointment. So if your supervisor says, when's the next time you're going out to see Mrs. Jones? Yeah, I've got it in appointments. It's right there. It's scheduled for this time. And I've scheduled the next 5 in a row in my appointments book. I did it all at once. So on the third Thursday at 11 o'clock, I'm calling them. That's scheduled as an appointment, and I'm all set. Okay. And that makes it easy. That way, all the contact forms are kind of out of the way. You don't need them, but you do need to put the appointments in to show anybody that's looking at your caseload and when you're meeting with these people, when you're going to actually give them a call or be in contact with them. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Okay. So as I say, that goes, but as Piola said, anything that is over and above what would fit in a contact, details, changes, updates, frustrations, feedback that the case should get, you will want to separate that into a note. Documentation that you're getting. Oh, we got a doctor's note. She is declining. There's Alzheimer's potential. They're going to have some testing. The family gives you a copy of that. You scan it into the system, you put it into WellSky. That also can help if, let's say, they have a determination that this woman is got Alzheimer's now or kidney failure or something else and she needs more support. That gives you the opportunity to do an updated person-centered plan, get her more people coming in or help, nurses, things like that. So all of that counts. And that's where you do a note for it to add to the information load for the people, because it's not only you doing all that work, but DHS also has to reauthorize, and they need documentation a lot of times to reauthorize, and you don't want to be going back and forth saying, hi, this is DHS, Paola, I'm just sorry to tell you I can't authorize this. There's no new documentation saying the person's condition has gotten worse. If you can upload some to the notes, and then it's a couple more days for you, and then it's on you, then on them, then on you, and it goes back and forth. The more you can get up front before you change the plan or update the needs, the easier it will be for them to approve it. Okay. All right. So with that being said, and us going in and everybody talking about it, you'll always have that. So if you go into the ticklers side, and let me lower this, you're going to see the case letter and the first contact. You guys have all done it, so I'm not going to go over what needs to be done there. As far as things are concerned, you're going to, go through that, make it done, do it. It goes over what you need to do. Not a big deal there. You're going to save it. It's going to get it done. And then it will show up here that you've, excuse me, you've made the changes and you finished the wizard here. Then you're going to go into the assessments tab. One thing I have not shown you, but we can all do right now because you all have the ability to do the case, okay, is that you're going to click on the assessments tab of the participant record and then click on the individual profile form in a pending status that was created by the interface. Now that probably isn't there right now because we didn't use the interface. So here's what I want you guys to do. We're going to create one so that you see it. It's the only thing that we haven't done together as a group. So let me go into my client. Hang on a second. Here we go. Go to my client. In your client, as Roseanne's in hers, go to the Assessments and Forms tab and open it up. Right now, you should only have the Inter-I V10 with iCodes. And the interface, when we get updates from all other parts of the Department of Human Services, it will create a form for you. That form is going to be under here, but it's going to be showing up here that you'll need to make an update. But let's create one. So go to Add Assessment and Form. And under here, it's going to be the individual profile data form. Okay. So Roseanne, I'm going to have you do it. I'm in yours, but I'm going to have you do it and open that up. I'm going to go into mine real quick and I'll get out of yours. So bear with me a second. Get into mine. Does everybody see the individualized profile data form right there? The profile data? Everybody sees that? So you're going to open it up. And there's a couple of things that are going to happen. This is another system that we plug into our demographic system. WellSky pulls from the system certain information, maybe a Medicaid ID that's not correct, a social security number, other things that are on legal signed documents. Sometimes you all know that you'll get information from the client that either they didn't recall, don't remember exactly correctly, and they probably didn't sign it, but they told you verbally, and you'll put it in, and it won't be actually right. So in this case, this allows us to hopefully fix some of that data, and we update. So you're going to have a form in here, okay? And basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be changing this. We're going to go over this real quick, but this form will be one that you're going to make some modifications to, and we're just going to follow along on the instructions right here. So you're going to open up that individualized profile data form, okay? You're going to then go in, review the read-only fields that came with the interface. So there'll be some fields here. They'll have some information here. Probably won't make much sense to you right now, but it will slowly as we get going. You're going to scroll down to the health status and the narrative sections. Those sections are going to be filled out by you, okay? So the enter the data that is known because this will populate sections of the individualized profile report. So if they've given you, critical incidents, and usually the family will share she's been in the hospital 3 or 4 times and what they are and those kind of details, you're going to put down based upon what you know from the client, how many times they've either been in the hospital or there's been an issue with something that's been going on, okay? And then they're going to report to you also, you're going to put down who reported. Usually it'll be this daughter, I'm sorry, she's fallen a couple times, off to the side type of thing. And, her time understanding's a little off, those kind of things. Any behavioral health issues would be reported by you. Any major disease diagnoses, any current treatments, and any Olmstead issues would be filled in by you. Okay. You do not have to do the HCTI, the NF, or the MDS, and as you can see, they're not required. So if somehow they got missed, it's not an outrageously huge issue, but this is something that you want to make sure that as you're following the document, you're going through this to get this done. And you may not know this until after you've had conversations with the client. So as you can see, it's kind of, asking you for information maybe before you're going to get it when you're physically meeting with the person. I would suggest filling this out after you've talked to the client, because by this point you've already filled out the contact form. So at least you should have had a good dialogue with the client. This may be one of those that you pull up just to keep an eye on and ask the client if you feel that they feel comfortable talking on the phone about it, or with the family on the phone as well. Okay. And getting those done will help you because eventually you're going to have an individualized profile report of this person, which will be a combination of all the work you're doing and all the work that DHS has done. And it can give you a snapshot, and you can take a picture of it, or you can print it out and put it in your file for this client, that before you visit them, this will give you some updated, the last status that you knew of the client. Okay? Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Is it, you waiting for me, Roseanne?
Hi, Roseanne.
Kevin?
Yeah,
Hi.
yep.
So I just don't understand, a little unclear as to when we would complete one of these. Is this like an incident report?
This is
When
at the introduction of things. This is after or at the time you're contacting the client. It's not after the person-centered plan unless you can't get information from the client up front. So the way that it's situated is that you've contacted the client and then you're filling this out. It's not after the person-centered plan. So kind of the goal would be, if you can, to get a conversation going with the client so you can answer this, if possible. If you can't, it would be then after the person-centered plan because you physically met with the client.
So this is just informational stuff to add to the profile.
Correct. Yep, correct. And as you can see, it's not required, but it is a step that can be important in the future. So we want to just bring it up as far as one of the processing steps that you would do as you're talking to the client. You may have notes information that after you can go back in and fill this in. It's just something though to keep an eye on, because that's one place that we didn't go over yet, but it is one place that can be considered important. Okay? And everybody can see that, as I say, no red stars here. It's not going to change things. It does give you, though, a place to put a narrative. If you want to take your information that you put in notes, you can put that in there. It will help anybody that's looking at this case know more about the person. Okay? And it is all located, as you saw, it's all located in here under the individual profile. Now, when you're done and you filled everything in and you've completed it, that's when you're going to navigate the form and change the status to complete. Okay, because at this time you put everything that you could into it and it's all set. So that is going to be considered status complete. You're going to file, save, and close the assessment form, and then you're going to navigate back to the demographics tab. And then on the reports, if you want something for your record, you can select the individualized profile report. That report will have this information, of which some of it comes from our other system, so it may give you more insight into the client than you had, as well as information that you just put in to kind of keep a summary of the client. Rebecca, what can we answer for you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So after this form and we hit complete, let's say we found out some more information. Can we go back in there, or do we need to do another?
You're going to do another one. Yeah, because unfortunately it's locked off at that time, but you can go in and add, you can go in and add one and do another one, because it's probably better that way. Because let's say there's decline that continues to come through, you're time stamping different ones based upon the timing that you're changing the information on. So it's going to give you a record of, oh, look at the difference between May and December. Over the last 7 months, I've had to update this form 3 times, not just notes, because this is a form, but it also has changed the individualized profile report. That gives you, again, more information for other teams to look at, to let them know that this person has declined, needs more support, hence needs more budget money. It's really about, unfortunately, that support, that money. Those monies are always, scrutinized. So the more detail you have on the client, the better and easier it's going to be to get that, funding to come through. Okay, but good question. You're welcome. Okay, so that being said, after this is done and I've completed it, we've talked about making an appointment. That is going to be, as I said, after the contact form. This is the most important kind of combination of pieces, because everything with contact, it's funny, we call it contact-free case management. So you would think that it's no contact, but it's not. It's all about contact. It's just the freedom of having more contacts, believe it or not. That's how I think of it. So everything regarding the appointments and having them in the system is going to be huge for you, because your supervisor, DHS, and everybody else is going to be making sure that you're making those contacts with the client on that monthly basis, and that you have it all scheduled and set up in there so they can quickly go in and say, this client's being very well serviced. And that's what everybody wants to see. So, getting yourself ahead of it, no problem. Getting yourself on target with it, no problem. But not having it will be the problem, because everybody will say, well, how can we see that you set up an appointment with the client and you said you talked to them or this or that this past month when you didn't have an appointment set up? That's going to be the kicker. And you're going to need to make sure that that's in order to have that there. Also, if you need to reschedule, or let's say the client, and this is the biggest part of it, if the client is non-responsive, you're showing through the appointments needing to be rescheduled or canceled again and canceled again, that this client is, really kind of running you through this situation of maybe not being the right applicant for conflict-free case management. And we get more and more from DHS and others, the fear that some of these people think, as life is, that everything will just come to them if they're eligible. This part of that package is eligibility and the necessity for you wanting to have more contact with a care manager, and through that contact having greater resources. If you decide as a person, as a client, not to do that or go through it, you're going to have to understand that you will probably have less resources and you'll probably have less service. And in order for the Fed to kind of vet that out, it's all about the appointments that you make and the appointments that they keep. If they don't keep their appointments and things like that, and they complain that you're not doing a good job, this is your backup to say that I've made the appointments. They've not made them. They've rescheduled. They canceled. They've no-showed. I've done everything I can every month to make sure that we keep something on a regular, consistent basis, and they're not helping me help them. So it will not come back to you as a question as long as you keep up with your appointments. Anybody have any questions on that? Because that was one thing I went over with DHS this week, and they all agreed. If you've done all of your work on the appointments and this person, his client, has called into DHS and complained, they can very quickly go in here and say, this case manager has done everything that she was supposed to do. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi. So on the contact form, we will have a place where we can put some notes, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So if the client doesn't really cooperate, we can put all of them document, or do we have to do a separate?
No, you can keep it on the contact form if you want. It's
Okay.
more or less, though, I'll be honest with you, because of the way that this is set up, as much as the contact note is important, the appointment note is even more important. It is more important. So as you can see, if there's a summary here on the bottom right here, it says appointment summary, and you can put down any notes you want in there as well. So let's say the appointment went through, but this woman wants nothing to do with you and nothing to do with anything that anybody wants other than the 3 things she already has. You can put in there that, there are concerns that she will not probably want to continue with conflict-free case management, because she's pretty much outright told you she doesn't understand why the state is doing this. It's all the state's fault. She was perfectly fine last year, been fine through COVID, gets her Meals on Wheels, gets this, and she's done. The more she hears from you, the more it angers her. That's not her. That, unfortunately, as much as she may want to be able to, understand that that's all she needs, the government is saying, unfortunately, in these cases, we have too many that don't get what they need. So everybody's kind of going through this process. If you don't participate, you may get less of what you currently have. And not to threaten her or anything like that, because that's not your decision. But basically, this is a plan to help you get more needs. not less. But there are other, situations that could happen that, could jeopardize her, her eligibility or other things in the future. So we really recommend that you try this and give it 6 months and see how you do, and see if we do what we're supposed to do, because that's what we're here for. That's why we're participating. We want to help you, and this is why we're part of the program. We're certified, and we're doing this. So it's not to make a threat, but it's kind of to make a suggestion to them that, this has gone through a couple of different processes, and we want to try to help you more. So this will give you more opportunity. Roseanne, I know you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't want to, belabor this, but are we really at a point where we're saying that if someone who's receiving home care services doesn't want to participate in all this other stuff, then they will not be eligible to receive home care services anymore?
No, that's not. That's why that's why this is a tricky slope. No, it's not that. It's more to say that this was justified by so many people that weren't getting enough service to have more of a regular service monitoring. Their eligibility will not go away, but the amount and the quality of their care will not be at the higher standard of CFCM if they don't want to participate. That'd probably be the best way to say it. So nobody's going to lose anything, and I'm getting a ton of background noise. Nobody's going to lose anything, but the bottom line of it is that there could be, it could take them longer to get something, especially if they want to make a change of their care provider or service provider. This is the best way to have a regular contact and regular servicing. I think that's the best way to say it. It's hard, you're not trying to threaten the person. You're trying to get them to understand that this is an opportunity for them to get more out of a system than less, and maybe they're used to what less is. But to have DHS call you every 6 months or just send you a letter saying you need to update your paperwork is not really case management. And they can't do any better until now they have you guys as helping them with the process to get directly to the person's house and talk to the people on a monthly basis. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a really tough picture. You're not trying to penalize anyone. You're not trying to hurt anybody. You're trying to make any situation worse. You definitely don't want to get into a threatening situation with the people, but you want to accentuate what this program can help them do. And the biggest thing that it does is give the people more access to case management. If they're, especially if their needs are changing, and they may be an 84-year-old that doesn't understand what's changing around them, but their family does. So that's where it's going to kind of come in handy. You've got a lot of people since COVID that have declined in mental acuity and other issues that basically don't realize that they are more needy now than they've ever been. So they're going to say, hey, I don't need you. I'm good. But then the daughter's behind them shaking her head saying, I need you. We're PCAs 24/7 to grandma, and I have to work a job, and I've got 3 kids, and I've got this and that, and we've got a lot of problems. So it's going to be a combination for you guys to make once you get on site or over the phone and make kind of an understanding. But DHS will be accentuating the positive benefits of you coming out ahead of you coming out, and then you guys keeping that current as far as things are concerned. And we have talked with DHS about training for you with psychiatry, with psychology, and letting you guys, get some tools in your toolboxes for how, an update to social casework as far as explaining maybe the, a couple of things, maybe a handout, maybe something like that, accentuating the positive. But nowhere do I ever want to say people are going to have any kind of penalty. It's just they lose out on the opportunity to have more contact. And and as we all know, unfortunately, the state can only do so much with 80,000 people and 13 people working with them, type of thing. You're going to be able to expand that to 200 to 300 case managers now working with that group, or even more case managers. But good question, Roseanne. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, important part is that appointment, making sure that where it is and the status is always going to be scheduled. Okay, as you can see, until you finish it. When you have finished that scheduled, you would go back in there and finish, either it's been complete or it's been a situation where you had to reschedule, or another part. Let me go back into the client. So as I say, under appointments, one of the things that you need to remember is under schedule, there's a whole bunch of different showings here: pending, completed, canceled, no show, rescheduled, scheduled. Everybody asks, how about confirmed? Confirmed would be great if you had to, let's say it was 2 months, 3 months out, and you needed to call them up and do that. But again, if you're trying to save yourself steps on the contact form, putting it in as scheduled is the best setting, because from scheduled, if they call in and cancel, you could put canceled. If they are a no-show, you could put in no-show. And then automatically with canceled and no-show, it asks you whether you wanted to reschedule, and it marks this and stamps it under rescheduled. So it shows how many times you've had to reset the schedule for the client. That also proves your point that this person may not be the greatest candidate, isn't adhering to kind of the rules of CFCM, maybe doesn't understand it, or just wants to be left alone. And those places are proof positive after a period of time that DHS can use, because they have to also show the federal government that CFCM isn't working on some of this group. And there's always going to be probably that 10% of the entire group that just wants nothing to do with more contact and less contact. So we have to show that. This is our means to do that. Okay. Any questions about that at all? All right, great. So moving on from that and back into the document, as you say, it moves down and along pretty quick. If you needed to put notes in, as we've talked about a bunch of times, you can add notes anytime you want with that is concerned. And then you have the initial person-centered plan. And again, this takes it as like your first time going in, you're set up as case manager. The plan should already be in there, okay? In this chapter, you add an additional person-centered plan, which is the form, the assess risks, the objectives, intervention, mitigations, and plan services. So as you can see, the initial person-centered plan is not just the plan. The way that everybody's talking about it is that it also has, from the person-centered plan form to the assess risks, their objectives, the intervention and mitigations, and the plan services. So the plan services are the codes for the services that are going to get put in. That's the part right now we're still waiting on. But you can do the person-centered plan, which you've done. And hopefully some of you have also done the assessed risks, objectives, interventions, and mitigations, even though they currently are not required. But as I said, it's really probably a great idea in the, and it will be a future requirement to start putting those at least 2 assessed risks in. Does anybody want to go over anything on their person-centered plan that they had a question on? Because as I said, I'm not trying to, suck up all the bandwidth on this. We've gone over it a couple times. Or anything on the assessed risks, objectives, intervention, or mitigations. Does anybody want to go over any of that they had a question on or wanted to give, get some feedback? Because this will be a great time to do it. Okay. As I said, I'm not going to belabor it. You always have ways of getting in touch with me to find out. As I said, this was one of the things that you guys are going to work on outside of our sessions. So I won't need to go over that. I'm not going to go over the plan anymore. I think you guys have had enough time on that, as well as other things. One thing you will see, though, is you will see a workflow wizard when this comes up, and it will have the add and complete the person-centered plan. And then it has the second section, which is called review and update existing risks. This isn't an automatic go-to section. It just tells you that you need to go into that section. So once I've gone in and I've saved my person-centered plan for the first time, it's going to show me, and I'll show you right here under the plans tab. Once I've done that, then basically I go into my plan. It's going to have these 6 tabs here on this side. Most of this section, that chapter, is all about these sections. So the plan forms we understand are here, person-centered plan. The risks are here, and right now they would be empty, and you'd go to add assess risks, and it will show you all the risks that have come through the inter-eye for this particular person, and they are large. And as I've explained to you a little bit, rather than going through 16 or 17 different risks, try to find the ones that either at the meeting that you've been at or at the conversation you have with the client, you definitely know are major factors. So let's again do an example. The 5 cognitive and capacity making decision pieces. I may not do disordered thinking or memory recall. I may do cognitive skills for everyday decision making because that's important, and that includes the other ones. A change in mental status because the person unfortunately is either being evaluated or needs to be evaluated for mental health, or the change in decision making, which is more of a general one. It depends on what I, as a case worker or case manager, makes the decision on. So rather than put in 5, I just probably need 1 that kind of summarizes as best as I think it could that risk. Okay. Same thing with communication. Maybe if they have hearing and vision issues, they definitely have issues understanding others. So if I feel communication is really important and they may have a hearing or a vision issue, I don't have to put either one of these down. I could put understanding others because of X. They are losing their hearing. They have hearing aids. If they don't wear the hearing aids, they can't hear, or they're wearing a different version of glasses or a combination. Sometimes if they have hearing and vision, they're definitely having trouble understanding others if they're not using those. So that would be something there. And then, as you can see, they are organized by category. So if there's a mood and behavior, maybe the person has psychosis, which includes the mood and the behavior, or maybe the person has behavior, which includes the mood. It would be your decision as to what risk you want to put in. Again, less is still okay, but less is definitely better than none. So make sure that I would recommend that you have at least 1, if not 2 in there. They're not required, but we're going to take a really good look at this in about 30 days to see what people are coming back with feedback. If it comes up that we definitely know that there are issues that kind of pertain to this, we probably would go back and say that we would require at least 1 to start off and then possibly a second one. Just because risks flag everything, not just 1 or 2 things. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Oh, question, Roseanne.
Sorry, Kevin. So when would you add this? Just as it occurs, or when you're doing because it seems that a lot of this would already be in the RAI, right? That's what these questions are all about. So when would you?
Yeah, these are in the RAI, but they are not considered risks yet for you as the case manager. So that's why I'm saying this would be put in at the time you're doing after you've done the person-centered plan itself. So right after the plan, you're fresh coming from the person. You go into this risk area and say, I noticed this, I noticed that, I noticed this. These are risks. I really should put them in to make sure I summarize this person, not only from what the narrative is that they want, like they're going to tell you what they want. That goes into the person-centered plan. But your observations are what's going to connect to this. So yeah, I saw them. They were very agitated. They definitely were, the daughter says mom didn't take her medicine today. She's very upset, frustrated, can't control her temper, has to go to the bathroom every 2 minutes because she's just so mad at you coming here or something like that. That would be where, after you've met with them and talked to them, you start looking to fill this out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Okay, so as I said, that being said, would go in here, and then you would do your everything from your assessed risk to your objective. All of them have answers within the system. So you don't have to find answers, you don't have to make answers, but you need to select what's best. The hardest part's going to be for you right here is in the mitigation section, because in the mitigation, you're going to have that they refuse the mitigation, that they chose the intervention, or something other. They could say, I want nothing to do with this. You're saying it's a risk. It's not a risk for me. I'm not doing anything about it. And again, this is kind of a future use that we're going to have because this could be tied to more help, and we could offer services and mental health at their homes, but we would need something to say this person is risk in order to potentially have a weekly or monthly or quarterly case social worker or somebody going in and helping this person with their mental health. So this is something that we're looking at as far as for future, but it does help to gain more information into the client, and from that, potentially more services. Okay. And I know we talk about backing up what they have or what they don't have with more proof, but that is kind of the way that everything's going to. It's a much more objective rather than subjective form of the way things are, but we have the documentation to back it up. Okay. Okay. So as I said, this part will slowly become more and more important. It would be great if you can put at least one in for the time being to get it started, and then from that point go on. Okay. Okay. That being said, and finishing that part, let's go down, saving the form. As I said, for this section, which we just went into, it only has, and it's really sad, it doesn't have a link that says that you can go right to the risks. It just reminds you to go there. And that's the second thing after doing the plan that you would do. So it says go click the risk subpage on the left-hand side. That risk subpage is right here. So you have to go kind of into the plan again and then go over here to the risk tab. So it's not an automatic when you click on it, it goes right into it, which is too bad because it should be. But the system, we don't have that yet in the system. I'm hoping we can change that in about the next 3 or 4 months. Okay. All right. So then you filled it out. As you can see, there's a ton here. They kind of list all of them, and then everything else. One would be great to get started. And then as you've met with the client in the future, you can always add more. It doesn't change any kind of assessment. Right now, it doesn't change that the state wouldn't have to go back in here and approve or authorize your codes or anything like that you have to do. It's just basically there to kind of become a placeholder for potential problems coming up with the client. Okay. Let me go back. I'm going to go out of all the risks, move down. It goes into detail about every subsection of the risk sections. So we don't need to go into that. Oops. I think this is where we have to go here. Nope, still not there. Okay. And then the last part of it is going to be, this is the part that we haven't been able to do yet. Okay. This is called add plan services. And as I've told you, the state's kind of slow grinding on this one, unfortunately, with a lot of different input, but this is the actual codes that are built upon in the state system. So that's why it's so important. Right now, there are 363 codes. That is not something that we want every agency to have to deal with. We want you to probably deal with a good, maybe a set of 20 or 30 codes max, and a really good outline of what those codes do and how to use them, and get a handout to everybody. Because if we don't do that, this could take you too much time, and we don't want this bogging you down. So if you needed, and you would be adding a planned service, and one of them you would be adding is for your own work, your case management, you will be putting one in under your agency for planned service, and that'd be the first one you did. But this goes into detail as the planned services. Now you have this, it's in the tab here called planned services. Okay. It's right in this section underneath the plan forms, the plan information, and the risks. And this is where you actually see all the calculations that were made in the inter-I, and then your connection to the person-centered plan come in and create actually a budget, and a budget by program, and a budget by authorization. Okay, that's kind of where it all comes in. It also tells you the date that it begins and ends. You can kind of see all the combinations of things, how many units and things like that are put in. For this one, though, we need the service codes themselves, and that's why we right now we don't have them. So that next training we have, I'm hopeful to get the service codes. I'll populate the system with them, and I can show you how to do it. Okay. And at the same time, I'm going to get you a handout that makes it as easy as we can to explain what those codes are and which ones are to be used for what services. Okay. This will be a section that DHS and you will be working on. This will probably be the section of all the sections that if it gets pushed back for a revision, it may be because the code that you put in is not correct, because that code goes directly into our billing system, and the providers that you're working with are billing on that code. So we want to make sure everybody gets paid as quickly as possible. When that code is wrong, people don't get paid. We don't want to do that. That's why we've been holding off on it. Okay, so not to go over it in too much detail, but just give you some general understanding. You're going to create a planned service for every service that you put in. So if you're doing one, say as a case manager, and you're billing the state, which we want you to bill, you would be putting in here under the program subject code under index, this training that we've had. And if you work on with BHDDH, they'll have different codes, which are here, or for even HAB, there are all different codes. So the BHDDH one would be the IDD code. Anything EADHCBS would be the EADHCBS code, which is 73. And then any other groupings that you may be certified for in the future, you would be selecting them. Once this is put in and basically it's selected, then you go to the next tab, which is what is the internal program. That internal program has a bunch of selections. I'll show you that because that's pretty stable. So bear with me a second. So if I had a planned service, I'm going to just go in here and really quick, just put this in. I have a bunch of different service categories, okay? Internal MMIS program. The most of the time, the one you're going to be using is the DHS community, okay? There could be others depending upon the circumstance, but most of the time it's going to be DHS community. And the reason why is because your programs that we're working on for EAD fit into the DHS team, okay? If your BHDDH work, you'd be doing anything for BHDDH community all the way down to DD residential services. But again, most of the time it would probably be the BHDDH community or BHDDH transportation. But for this one, we're talking about DHS community. Potentially you could do OHA, some of the OHA programs, but for the majority of the time that you're working, it should be DHS community. Now, this is where the service code comes in. I'm going to show you what we have. It's not there already yet, but this is what I'm saying. There's 20 records for each types of service, and there's a whole bunch of different service types. So in here, you will see it like this, but the codes will be hopefully a lot less. You'll have a service code, a description of what the service code is for, and as you can see, some of them are very similar. There's a U1 with the same description as this one. There's a U2 and a U1 here for this one, and you're like, well, wait a second, which one am I going to choose? Doesn't really tell me what U1 and U2 do. I'm not going to tell you because I'm hoping we clean this up so you don't have to see that. But the bottom line of it is it's an LTSS fund code, which is what you want. Each one has a different cost. So it definitely looks like more hands-on services get put in between the S5102 and the S5102 U1, U2. Look at that, it's double the price. So there's definitely something here with maybe the amount of participation that needs to happen. Maybe there is, more of a feeding aspect or a hands-on aspect because there's more service cost to this one, but you wouldn't be able to know that. And that's where I've gone back to them and say, we need to clarify this for you because most of you have not done service codes or maybe your supervisor or management has, but you haven't as a case manager. You can also see that the internal program kind of as a check are all identically the same. So we want to give you that opportunity to have less of this for confusion's sake and have more detail. Okay. You also see that there's a per diem here. That's even a different price, but the same original number for just the U2. And then there's a U9. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things. Okay. So which one you're going to pick gets very confusing. And that's why you can see that, we've been holding back because of the amount of confusion that this would bring. So hopefully I'll get an update on it tomorrow by the program coordinator, and I hope by early next week we'll have an idea of exactly what the new forms and new codes are going to look like, and we'll insert it for you to get you to better understand. But let's just say that we use this U9 and we put it in. So this will come up with daycare per diem. It'll be under DHS community, so it fits. It's a day, and how many units per day? So units are broken up into 15-minute segments. So if this person needs 4 hours of 15-minute segments, and there's 4 15-minute periods in an hour, that's going to be 16 units. Okay. Now that's going to be per day, calendar day or business day, depending upon how it goes. Okay. And you're going to also then, you don't have to put a provider ID because you don't know the provider yet. You're just setting up the template to get things ready to put it in. Okay. So that number of units per in is going to be 4,112 units. Okay. And again, this is going to change based upon how it's set up. I'm just putting something in for an understanding. What is the service? Now you get 2 red stars. This is going to be a new service. And the reason for the code change is it's going to be a new service. So that's where it's put in. Any comments you need to put in, you can put in. But basically, you don't have to have the provider ID, but in order for DHS to authorize, you do have to have all of the information that's here, even if it doesn't have a red star. Okay. You may not know the total number of units, but I will tell you now, they will want you to know. And you'll say to yourself, well, where am I going to find that? Well, it's a combination of places, but we will be sitting down with DHS probably having DHS with us next week to go over that, because there's a couple different places. I just don't want to confuse you right now. But if this is what you're saying the person needs, then this will go in. And if I save this as it is without a provider, because I don't know my provider yet, I will go in and save plan services as I always do. It'll then warn me. It says units cannot be any more than 1. Okay, so now I have a correction. The way they're going to do it, it's going to be 1 unit. So 1 unit is the whole day. Okay, 1 unit is the whole day in this circumstance. And again, there's a whole bunch of ways to set this up, but 1 unit is a day. So it's warned me that I put in too much. You can see the big difference now. Okay, it'll save it, and now basically the max cost for the number of total units it's actually going to be 1 unit, which is in a day, will be approximately a 29 unit cost will be 7,453. Now there is a calculator that they worry about. This isn't anything that you have to worry about, but basically it's there. Now, if you know what the service is justified by, could be justified by the goal that they need transportation. Transportation is a service. You can put it in that's connected to the goal. You're not required. You can see here though, something interesting, that this is the assessed risk. So those risks that you put in, that section of risks, can connect to monies that help DHS better understand why the people need a funding mechanism of a certain level. Okay, so it is helpful to have that risk in here because it does connect to it, even though this service justification is not required. Okay, any detail you want to put in under here, you'd put under additional comments and any reason for change. And this could happen. Let's say the person in a month says this provider hasn't met any of my needs. They come in whenever they want. They do whatever they want. They're out of control. I really can't use them. I need you to come back out. Let's update the person-centered plan. Let's update the authorization and take them out. Then I can put in here for the comments and change the service to terminate. Okay, so now I don't have them anymore, and I add a new service provider under new or update or whatever else I want. I can also suspend them too. So this will go into the funding stream and it will knock, kind of change things. And I also have this, the person is not utilizing services or changing providers. So there are ways to manipulate this past new, that if the person is leaving this provider, they can change providers and they can suspend or terminate the current provider they're working with. Okay, those are things you're going to need to make changes to before you can add a new provider to take over for the services that they are currently going through. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So if I save this and I put it in and I save the plan service, and then I go here to close plan services, I now have a second service that shows up. Adult day services, total units, 157, $29 is the unit cost, starts on the 31st today, ends a year from now under DHS Community. It's a new service. And then this is where DHS will go into and they'll authorize the service when you give it back to them for their authorization piece. That's what they do. But until that happens, it tells you what the total number of units are, and it tells you what the total amount of monies allocated to the person is. Okay, that's a pretty crucial step. Once we get you the right service codes, make life a lot easier, because as I say, it may look super complicated. I think with a smaller number of service codes and more information on what those codes do and what you need to put in, you'll have a much easier time getting it through, and you won't be kicked back with a revision where DHS knows it because they live it in and out of the codes all the time and you're new to it. So we want to make it easier for you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so after that, at this point, back to here, when this service component is done, okay, and it will give you more information than I'm giving you temporarily right now because I'm just going over through the highlight. Then basically you're going to, of course, set your, you could set ticklers up for yourself at any time. It does explain in here how to do a follow-up tickler and how to set things up for follow-up, which is great. But you're also then running the plan validation by going in and validating the plan. It will tell you and show you any of the errors that you have for validation. Maybe you messed something or you forgot something. Yes, Rebecca, what can we do for you? Oh, Rebecca, you haven't unmuted yet.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No problem.
What you were just going over, is that for billing or is that for just getting the services in place for that particular client?
It's actually for both. So it's getting the services in place and the billing in place before you probably have a provider that's going to provide the services. What you're
Gotcha.
doing is you're kind of setting up the prior authorization in WellSky. You're also going to be doing it in CSM, but you're kind of getting all the seeds ready so that way when it is approved, you can do the CSM component. I believe, Roseanne, has your team been trained yet by Gainwell and CSM?
Yeah, we did have that training, yes.
Great. So you guys know that part of it. So you're going to be working in a couple of systems, WellSky and CSM, but DHS and all the other teams, including the providers, will be connecting in CSM to pull those, the clients and start working there. And that's how they're going to get paid, not only through WellSky's services, but also through CSM's appointments. Okay. But great question, Rebecca. Thank you. Okay. So after validation is done, at this point, I think we were saying is that there's a couple of different things that you'd be doing. You'd be going back into the plan information subpage, and I'm going to show you this by hand, but you're in the plan information section, but you got to go to the plan information subpage. The plan's been validated, okay? And now I need to go in and, as we talked a little bit with Roseanne, if she's going to be the one that looks at it, you're going to send it to her for supervisor review. Okay. So you would change it from draft initial to change the person-centered status to supervisor review. And then she would take a look at your case and make sure that, everything that's there is supposed to be there. It's been validated, which you've done. You have everything filled out. Your appointments are good. Your person-centered plan is strong. Potentially did your risks. You did how many goals for your person-centered plan should you do? Anybody remember what I suggested is the minimum, even though there is
2.
another minimum? 2, correct. And the reason why is, God forbid, in a month they say, oh, we don't want to do that, can't do it, and push back on it. You have another one to work from, so you don't have to redo the plan. So once it's in for supervisor review, then Roseanne would go in and she'll change this and she'll move it over to submitted for review. And the state then will go forward and finish it. If everything's exactly the way it needs to be, they'll go in and they'll change it to active. Okay. Once they change it to active, and I want to give you guys a quick look at this. Let me see if I can give you this. Hang on one second. I believe I have it. I want to show you a little kind of an inside to the chart. I don't want to confuse you. How many of you like to see graphics? I mean, do you like graphical interpretations of things? I hope you do. Let me see. My password for this one. Yeah, let me see if I can remember this one. Nope, third time. Great. All right, hang on. Oh boy, wow, this is gonna give me a hard time. Hang on a second. Let me see if I'm gonna go back to the sandbox. Try to figure this out. I have a graphical interpretation I wanted to show you of something. So bear with me a second. I know what I can do. One minute here. I just want to show you something. So there's a flow for the way that it kind of goes through the DHS from this point to you. So bear with me a second. Let's see if I can get you that, because it's always nice to show your graphic. I apologize for not having it loaded up. It's just been one of those days. So, okay, there we go. Okay. Here we go. All right. So if you guys like graphics, hopefully you'll like this. So I'll give you an idea. Be nice if this will move. Okay. This part right here, if you guys can all see the CSM. Yeah, make it a little bigger. Try to help. Okay. This part right here now will be the next part that happens. Okay. When DHS updates it, okay, as far as authorizing it, they're going to put a note into the record for your supervisor, letting them know, at least at this point, that that record is active. Okay. They're not going to send an email right now because they don't want to do a ton of email, but there will be a note put in. So you can look in your notes that there'll be an update, and they'll let everybody know that the authorization is now done. Now, what you're going to be doing at that point is you're going to be working as CSM, and you're going to use the case manager provider portal, and you're going to put in that authorization for that work, where all of the agencies will be connecting into what they call the direct service provider home care referral portal, and they'll be pulling your cases. okay, and starting to pick things. And you'll see an update in CSM that they want that client and they want to do that work. That's going to be their way of kind of communicating with you. Right now, because of licensing, they're not going to be in WellSky. You guys are in WellSky and DHS is in WellSky. So CSM is going to be kind of their way of connecting. Now, is it going to be a perfect process? No, because right now we understand that probably out of the 12 or 13,000 providers in the state, only about half of them are using or even know what CSM is. So they're going to have to start getting up to speed very quickly. But it will probably clean itself up in the first few months with things that need to get done. But you guys will be monitoring the portal through this here, and they're going to be logging in on the other side under the direct service provider portal here. So there will be, things that are going to be going on that you're going to be kind of working with. And we just want to give you guys an understanding that we know that it's not perfect, but we will be working through it, trying to, optimize it as we get going. Eventually CSM will go away and all you'll have to be doing is all the work in WellSky. We're hoping for some time by the middle of next year to get that to a place, but we don't know yet. So we have to include this in. And we did buy an interface to connect with this to make it easier, to also save all the providers, because we have so many that would have to buy licensing to WellSky, to try to eliminate that. It was like $100,000 interface we had to buy to do this, but it will get done. So that way everybody knows what's going on. Okay. Any questions on that? I mean, I have the whole layout here. I don't want to show you guys, bury you guys with that, but just giving you guys an idea of all the different types of processes that we have, and how we work with it is going to be done. And I can show you another graph that I have next week, that'll help as well. Okay. All right. Let me go back to the book. So at that point, as I said, it'll show you in here, it'll tell what they have to do. So it'll give you an idea of all the work that DHS has to do. So you'll understand kind of the process. They're going into each of these cases, each of these all of the services that you have, and making sure that the codes are right and everything else. That's why it's so important to have this step working for you before we kind of get you to go live, because essentially in 2 weeks after owning the client, you're going to have this right. And the last thing we want is to have the codes wrong and then it constantly going back and forth and us having to manually intervene to help you fix it. So that's what the delay has been. I just wanted you to know. So, and I can show you now that you're going to have the book as to what it is. Now, one of the things that can happen is that if changes need to be made to the person-centered plan form, the state will need to unlock the record. So they'll have to go in and unlock the record for you. And they'll have to then allow you to go back in and make a change. Let's say that the person's, goals have changed. As I said, you only put one goal in and it's the only goal and they don't want to do it. And there's other issues. The state then will have to make that happen. You would communicate to Carrie Cook as your supervisor that, let's say Renee's person-centered plan needs to be updated. They would go in and unlock it and allow Renee to go back in and make changes and go through the process of validation and then also the process of reauthorization. So we go back through that process. But we're, as I say, the hope is with at least the first couple of months that you've got everybody in a good place, including the client. Things don't need to be changed and everybody's pretty happy. So you're not constantly going into the person-centered plan to make changes. But that's about it for today. That's about it. Now I know, Anili, I have to go into Carlos. Let me go into him real quick. I'm just going to make that change. I'm going to stop sharing and I can answer some questions for anybody and we can get you guys going. Neely, go ahead.
Oh, I found him.
Oh, you did. So you have him as clinically eligible. He shows up.
Yes. I know. Good. I found him. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. You're welcome. Anytime. Anybody else have any questions or comments or needs or anything else? I want to give you guys a little bit of time back. Oh, Roseanne, go ahead.
Yeah. So Mercedes can't see clinically eligible as well.
Who's having trouble? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Mercedes Rodriguez.
Yes, she can find it, right?
No, she can't. She can't see that.
She can't. Oh, okay. All right. Let's go in there and fix that. All right. So Mercedes, right? Let's go in and fix it. No problem. We go in here and Mercedes here. Okay, you're all set. Mercedes, let me just make sure there. Great, you're all set. You're all set. It's going to take a minute for it to show up, but it will show up.
No, she's good now. She's got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Anili, go ahead.
Can you double check mine? Because I
Yeah.
don't see it now.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Smith and Carlos. Yep, you need it. Okay, let's fix you up. Sitting. Go. Make sure you're in. Yep. Close. And you're all set. It'll take a minute for it to pop up, but as I said, once you go to My Work Now, you'll see under there for at least a few minutes until you start working on it, them showing up under clinically eligible.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. Anytime. So folks, I appreciate everything. You guys, some of you have been jumping into the office hours. That's great. You'll be using it more often as you get going, and we'll be there every day with you. Are we able, Roseanne, to set up next week for an hour from 9:30 to 10:30 on the 7th, right? It'll be on the 7th. And I could send that out. Let's make sure, because that, I'm hopeful, will be the good news right before everything. So that would be the 7th.
Yeah, okay, so at 9:30 again?
Yep, 9:30 to 10:30. It'll be 1 hour. All I'm going to show you is just the service code information, how to go through that. But also, if you can get everybody out a copy of the book so we can follow along together, that would be awesome.
Okay.
All right. Oh, question, Rebecca.
Kevin, I was having trouble getting into the meeting in the first 15, 20 minutes.
Oh.
What were you going over? Because I was a little confused. Were you asking?
I think we started in the meeting.
Yeah, we started about 10 minutes late because I had an emergency that I had to work with. So you didn't miss anything to like 9:45 or so. And then we had to go back in for a couple other folks to fix them up. So I don't think you missed much. I did record it though, and I will get the recordings out. You guys have the recording link to YouTube that I sent to Roseanne. And basically you can go into any of the 3 recordings we've had, or 4 recordings we had now since then, and you guys can review. I mean, it's a lot. So I'd love you guys though to have the handbook, because that goes specifically into everything that we've done training on, and it goes right from 1 to 100. So that's the best way to know. And as I say, any questions from there, feel free. We're happy to help anytime. Okay. Well, listen, I wish you guys all a great Halloween. And you have little ones, and keep everybody safe. I've got a 3-year-old granddaughter I'm taking out tonight. I can't wait. It's like Christmas all over again. So I wish you all a good night, and we'll see you next Thursday at 9:30. I'll set up the meeting and I'll send out the information. I'll also get the recording hopefully out to you by next Thursday. Okay?
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Have a great day.